Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good day to you. We are now on the last chapter for Bio 565. So I would like to share all of those slides. Okay, for the hormones of reproduction, by the end of this chapter, you should be able to explain the types and roles of male and female reproductive hormone, and to describe what are the hormonal regulation for female and male reproductive cycle. So then you would able to differentiate between hormonal regulation between male and female. Then actually, what are hormones? When we are talking about hormones, it is the substances that are specializedly being produced by the cells that will be transported into the blood or lymph, meaning that the hormone itself lingering around of our body. So means once it is transported via the blood, so it's not remain static and it is progressive. So as it is known, chemical signals, what are there? What are they? They will give chemical signals for what? To communicate between the organs as well as the tissue. So there are a lot of primary hormones that should be known in this reproductive system. So it is having a lot of function. For example, spermatogenesis, ovulation, sexual behavior, and so on. And this one we have discussed it really in all of the topics previously. So reproductive hormone will originate either from the brain itself, what we call as inside the brain, we do have one structure of hypothalamus, or pituitary gland also in the brain itself, or the gonads, means the sexual organs also can produce hormones. Uterus also, the part for implantation, as well as the placenta. So the 3 or 4 major function, they are having releasing factors for other hormone also. For example, GnRH factor, when it is released by the hypothalamus, it will give a factor, means activate the production of LH and FSH. This one we have learned before. Gonadotrophin, sexual activators, as well as pregnancy maintenance. So we do have primary hormones of reproduction. As for 2 different types of female and male. So inside the male, the gonad itself, what we call as testis. The testis will produce androgen, estradiols, as well as inhibin. For ovary, inside the female, the name of the hormones are progesterone, androstenedione, estrogen, as well as inhibins. And during pregnancy, this one is what are being released by the placenta, the hormone of progesterone, estrogen, HCG. Okay, this one HCG is one of the hormone that we want to detect any pregnancy and so on, as well as placenta lactogen and inhibin. For uterus, when pregnant also, it can produce prolactin and relaxin. So this one is very important during giving birth. When you want, when the woman giving birth, so these are crucial parts of it. So you see here primary hormones of reproduction. So we do have 3 parts of the brain that induce the production of hormones. For the first one, hypothalamus inside the brain. Okay, hypothalamus are having or releasing two types of hormone, GnRH and prolactin inhibitor factor, PIF. For second part, after the hypothalamus, the crucial part for the brain also what we call as pituitary. Okay, pituitary is the same part, whether it is anterior at the front or posterior at the back. So anterior pituitary, the targets are to release the hormone of FSH, LH, and prolactin. For posterior pituitary are oxytocin hormone. So the major part for anterior pituitary for the reproduction actually here, the major part is in the anterior pituitary gland. So gonads, the one that we have discussed before, the names of all of those hormones and so on, for placenta as well as the uterus. So this one, how's the hormonal regulation of male reproductive system? Okay, but what kind of differences that we can see here? For hormonal control of female reproductive system is more complex and more in terms of the cycle itself. It's not only one as per male. So you can see the one that are having at symbol and the one that's having the minus symbol. The minus symbol means the one that we will be inhibited. The plus symbol is what we call as activated. So it is all started from the brain itself, from hypothalamus. It is activated to release gonadotrophin releasing hormone, or what we call as GnRH. This GnRH will stimulate the anterior pituitary to release FSH and LH by testes and Leydig cells. Okay. If the hormone are very well, means the hormones are exceeded, it will try to release testosterone that will then give negative feedback to the hypothalamus to stop produce or stop stimulate the anterior pituitary gland. So means this one should be balanced between inhibition and activation. Okay. So what we call as negative feedback loop. So the most important part here is the testosterone. Testosterone who are an inhibin that will be the one that will inhibit the release of GnRH, FSH, and LH. Okay. So for hormone regulation during the female reproductive system, we have learned in before on previous topics before, we do have three different phases. First one, starting in follicular phases. Second one, during ovulation. Third one, during luteal phase. So, what I want to highlight here, is the most important hormone that you should take in, you should consider, okay? So the same production of LH and FSH will be activated for all three phases, whether it is follicular, ovulation, or luteal phase. The one that will be activated is FSH and LH. Okay, so for example, ovarian hormones of the hypothalamus, once it is activated, it will release gonadotrophin releasing hormone. Okay, semua sama. And this gonadotrophin releasing hormone will activate the anterior pituitary to release the FSH and LH. Okay. And the targets also the same for ovaries as well as ovaries for 3 different species. Okay, you see here. Okay, then for follicular phase, the follicle will produce low level of estradiol that will inhibit GnRH to stop the production. Okay, for ovary, during the ovulation phase, it will begin to produce high levels. Okay, so high level of estradiol. During ovulation, what are the differences between follicular and ovulation? This amount of estradiol are higher. Estradiol in ovulation more higher rather than follicular phase. Okay, for luteal phase, the one that are secreting estradiol is by the corpus luteum. So also will have double effects on first at anterior pituitary, second one the effects on hypothalamus. It is compared to the ovulation, it's only for one hypothalamus itself, estradiol. Okay, so ovulation, estradiol itself are having activation for hypothalamus, for anterior pituitary, for hypothalamus to produce more ovulation. So these are impacting for the LH and FSH to keep on be produced. So why should be like that? So the endometrium wall will be thickened. So you see, this one is the prominent part of the estradiol. It gives the activation. It's not the inhibition. Okay, during luteal phase or follicular phase, both of them are inhibition, but for during ovulation, estradiol giving a positive feedback for the hypothalamus to produce more and more and more and more LH and FSH. Okay. So we continue more on gonadotrophin releasing hormone. This is the chemical structure. Okay, the main function to induce the release of LH and FSH. So for the application, it's been synthetically produced to overcome cystic follicle in cows and induce release of endogenous LH sufficient to induce ovulation. Okay, then we do have second one, what we call as FSH and LH. Okay, FSH and LH, actually the name also can be known as gonadotropin. Okay, jangan tertukar dengan yang sebelum tu, GnRH, gonadotropin, but they do have RH, what we call as the releasing hormone. Because GnRH will activate the production or induce the release of LH and FSH. So actually GN2 adalah gonadotropin, also named to the name of LH and FSH. That's what we call as gonadotropin. Gonad means primary sex, tropin means stimulating. Okay, gonadal hormones also that are produced by gonad also what we call as androgen, estrogen and progesterone. It's provide influence on sexual differentiation of the brain once they are matured. Then pituitary hormone, what we call as FSH and LH. We do have pituitary hormone, what I have said before, they are having at the anterior as well as posterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary cause immediate growth and maturation of the ovaries. Gonad of immature fail to develop after okay, this one is the findings. Contoh bila ada removal of anterior pituitary removal, immature rats are failed to develop. Sebab tu dia cakap, this one, they are having maturation of ovaries and testes. Based on these findings, kita akan tahu bahawa anterior pituitary actually will cause immediate growth and maturation of ovary. This clear the indication pituitary gland secretion essential for proper function of gonads. Okay, we do have, after pituitary being activated, anterior part, it will cause the releasing hormone of FSH. FSH, what we call as follicle stimulating hormone. FSH are having two different kinds, whether in male or inside the female. If inside the testis, both of them are stimulate the hormone and growth, stimulate the growth and development of follicles. And then this follicle also can produce or induce the production of another types of hormone, what we call as estrogen. Okay. For male, it will stimulate completion of spermiogenesis in male. So it is occur inside the seminiferous tubule of the testis and after onset of spermatogenesis. Then we do have LH, luteinizing hormone. Okay, FSH tadi adalah follicle. Sebab tu nama dia follicular stimulation, growth and development. Kalau LH, what we call as to stimulate production of estrogen by the follicle and theca cells. And the LH are the major part of hormone that cause the ovulation. So causes the formation of secretion of corpus luteum, what we call as the progesterone itself. And for male, it will stimulate testicular Leydig cells to produce testosterone inside. Okay, testosterone for male, progesterone for female. Okay, for female, progesterone are high. So why? Progesterone tinggi sebab to thicken, menebalkan the endometrium wall. Then we do have prolactin. Okay, prolactin also being produced in pituitary gland. Okay, anterior pituitary tadi. Okay, it's called as LTH or luteotropin to stimulate the milk secretion. Where? When? Bila ada pregnancy dan juga giving birth. Also, we do have LTH ni ataupun prolactin ni, dia adalah to maintain of corpus luteum to be there, dan dia tak jadi corpus albicans and so on yang selepas itu. Dia akan maintain this corpus luteum. Kenapa? Corpus luteum adalah the one that will secrete, macam saya cakap tadi, corpus luteum, the one who are secreting progesterone. So corpus luteum akan maintain pada waktu prolactin ni untuk dia juga corpus luteum produce progesterone hormone. Untuk apa ni? To maintain the thickness of the ovary, endometrium. Okay, so there are different kind of this LTH inside the mammals, fish, salamander, birds, and other domestic animals. What are the differences there? Okay, the differences there, for mammals, prolactin akan menyebabkan growth of mammary tissue milk and milk production. For fish, it will enhance osmoregulatory ability and promotion of lipogenesis, so that parental care will be obvious rather than other types of animal. Then we do have salamander. It will promote the movement of water prior spawning. For birds, the parental care will stimulate the cell lining and crop to produce pigeon milk. And for domestic animals, it promotes the maintenance of also the corpus luteum. So, actually, the one that can stimulate the control of lactation is the suckling. So, once it is suckle, okay, it will give a sensory input to the hypothalamus to induce production of pituitary to release. Pituitary gland is the same part, okay, sama saja, to induce prolactin for milk production, for oxytocin for the milk to be releases. Okay. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is a response to nerve stimulus, promotes contraction of smooth muscles. So the smooth muscle, where are the smooth muscle? First one at the mammary alveoli, second one at the uterus. These are the contraction there. Mammary alveoli for the ejection of milk, maksudnya during breastfeeding. For the uterus, it can contract the myometrial muscles that will cause the sperm to transport, and fetal will be expulsion, maksudnya dia boleh di push lah masa nak push baby keluar daripada mother tu. So this one, the oxytocin hormone yang paling penting sekali. As well as it will contract the myometrium, only it has been sensitized by estrogen and will prevent the conceptious loss. Then we do have types of steroid. Okay, steroids also one of the most important hormone there. Okay, gonadal steroid are the one that give a secondary sex characteristics both in males and female. They are produced by the adrenal cortex, then by the placenta. Okay, the major sex steroid hormone, what we call as androgen, estrogen, and progestogen. Not progesterone, but progestogen. Androgen are the male sex steroid, such as testosterone, also being produced by males and females, but the number in male are higher rather than in female. Estrogen are female sex steroids, also known as E2 of estradiol, and present in both male and female, but the most dominant inside the female. Then progestogen are progestational or pregnancy protecting. It is also called as progesterone P4. All steroid hormones synthesis from the cholesterol. So we can see the gonadal steroid inside the male, they are produced by the Leydig cells as well as the collaboration of Sertoli cells. Okay. They are form of cholesterol. LH, gonadotrophin of LH and LH will bind to the receptor. Okay, this one. Contoh dia, LH akan bind to the receptor. Okay. So it will stimulate production of CAMP. CAMP activates protein kinase, okay, for catalyzing the conversion of cholesterol to testosterone and estradiol. So the end product will be estradiol as well as the testosterone. It is starting from the steroid hormone. Okay. Okay. For TICA cells are also called, or TICA cells inside the female, they are the producing factors or precursor for the androgen androstenedione. Okay, this one for TICA inside the male, and granulosa also for the production of estrogen and androgen aromatized to the estrogen. This one is model of 2 cells, 2 gonadotrophin hypothesis. Means once, okay, kita tengok sini, bila LH bind to the receptor, they will be stimulates the production of CAMP. So CAMP di-stimulate. So kolesterol dalam badan ni akan akan menukarkan kolesterol, CAMP ni akan menukarkan kolesterol kepada testosterone inside the Leydig cells. Released by the Sertoli cells if it is FSH. Daripada testosterone inside there, once FSH are being dia melekat pada reseptor dia, binding to the receptor, it will activate the production of CAMP. This CAMP akan tukarkan testosteron kepada estradiol. Okay. Macam tadilah, synthesis of steroid hormone adalah daripada kolesterol. Okay, this compound, the name of the intermediate, what we call as pregnenolone. Okay. Pregnenolone will be converted into progesterone and then converted to the androgen. Okay. Then estrogen are formed by the aromatization of the androgen. Okay, ni aldosterone. Akhirnya, dan daripada sana aldosterone tadi, bila dia aromatization of this aldosterone, dia akan menghasilkan estradiol ataupun the name of estrogen. These are the concept pathway yang tak perlulah you ingat lah, untuk you hafal tu tak perlulah. But mostly these are the synthesis of steroid hormone daripada kolesterol. Dia akan activated by the CAMP untuk menghasilkan steroid, menghasilkan production of another types of hormone, what we call as androgen as well as estrogen. Can we do have male steroid hormones? The androgen itself will be converted into testosterone. Okay, androgen ni daripada androgen will be converted into testosterone. Okay, ini testosterone inside dia ada di pada kedua-duanya, tapi yang mana lebih banyak lah. So testosterone, okay, ini adalah cara penghasilan dia. dia ada virilizing effects, feedback regulation, hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis in male. Okay, so daripada sini macam mana dia hormon secretion dia, daripada GnRH dia akan GnRH will be stimulate. Okay, GnRH ni adalah gambar dia, yang ni dibesarkan lah. Satu part dia pada hypothalamus will release the GnRH. GnRH will activate anterior pituitary to produce LH hormone. Okay, LH hormone will target the Leydig cells to produce androgen. So the androgen itself are what we call as the testosterone. For what? They will stimulate spermatogenesis. Itu yang pertama. Second, stimulate secondary sex organ to grow, develop and become secretory, maintain lifespan of epididymal cells, stimulate secretory activity of accessory sex organ, stimulate sex desire or what we call as libido, as well as stimulate nitrogen retention for muscle formation. That's why bila lelaki menjadi orang yang mature, dia akan lebih more muscles, okay? And then the uses of androgen in pharmaceutical. Okay, so the androgen will be injected to develop teaser animal for estrus detection purpose. Maksudnya dia nak tahu sama ada dia dalam ada estrus detected ke tak. Okay, this one stimulate the muscle mass steroid used in the professional athlete. Maksudnya steroid ni dia boleh digunakan pada kadar yang tertentu saja. Kalau terlalu banyak digunakan, dia akan dibar lah daripada masuk ke perlawanan sukan and so on. So this one adalah untuk growth of the promoters as well as to stimulate the muscle mass. Okay, then we do have inside the female steroid hormone juga, nama dia adalah estrogen. Okay, estrogen, estradiol, estrogen, estriol released from granulosa cells. Okay, estrogen are released by the placenta, estriol are conversion daripada product of other two. Estrogen have both negative and positive control through the hypothalamus. Macam saya cakap tadi, estrogen tadi dia ada dua feedback dia. Okay, dalam gambar tadi. Tengok balik. Dia ada estrogen tadi, dia bagi positive feedback hanya pada ovulation. Tapi dia boleh juga bagi negative feedback during luteal phase as well as during follicular phase. Sebab tu estradiol adalah steroid gonads yang penting lah. Okay. Function of estrogen to stimulate for libido. Maksudnya the urgency of sexual receptivity are there. Also will stimulate lordosis. What are there? To stimulate growth and development of uterine endometrium. So that's why during ovulation, estrogen are higher and give positive signal. And then estrogen also can give higher amplitude and frequency of contraction and increase blood flow to the vagina and vulva during sexual activity. Also stimulate the duct growth and causes the development of mammary gland. Also can increase water retention at the sexual parts of vulva, vagina as well as the uterus. Increase retention of sodium chloride and water retention, and promote fat deposition and development of female sex characteristics. Okay, so the estrogen are being used for litholytic action and litholytic in the soul from the day of 11 to 16. For non-reproductive effects, it can increase the uptake of the calcium and maturation in the epiphyseal growth. Okay, then we do have second, what we just progestogen. Okay, this one too exhibit progestational activity. Okay, so what we call as pro means favor, gesteron means gestation, so that they will exhibit gestation activity. So actually, progesterone will determine the length of the cycle untuk cycle, ovarian cycles, cause the development of secretory endometrium uterus, slow down contraction of the uterus, smooth muscle control will inhibit the motility of myometrium and slow down the contraction of the uterus. Okay, for what? They prepare the uterus for implantation and maintaining of the pregnancy by increased secretory glands in the endometrium, as well as to develop alveoli in the mammary gland. These are all of those application to prevent any abortion in female pronto abortion, because it is sufficient or insufficient progesterone production, dia akan inject supaya tak akan ada abortion. Maksudnya dia akan maintain dan retain the baby itself. And it is commonly used as birth control pills and prevent LH surge and subsequent ovulation. These are all of those pregnancy hormones: estrogen, progesterone, and HCG. Estrogen during the pregnancy, estrogen is the one who are very well akan surge during 4 to 20 week of pregnancy. So this one for maternal recognition and produce leads in pregnancy. If it is, the one who are surge is HCG. Estrogen is not too much as the HCG, but in later stage, at 24 to 40, the estrogen are rising up because they are produced by the placenta. And this one will trigger the parturition. Progestogen are produced by the corpus luteum to initiate the pregnancy, as well as to inhibit myometrial contraction. Okay, hormone produced by the ovary, what we call as relaxin. Okay, relaxin is one types of the polypeptide hormone that are also released during pregnancy. They are produced by the corpus luteum, placenta, as well as uterus. For these three types, these three components are secreting relaxin. For what? To dilate the cervix and vagina before parturition, inhibits uterine contraction, cause increased growth of mammary glands, as well as for separation of pubic symphysis within 6 hours of injection. Then we do have another types of hormones. Second, what we call as activin. This is glycoprotein. Instead of steroid, this is glycoprotein. two products modulator for the production of steroids and other hormones. So activin adalah the one that activate production of steroid. Okay, they are produced by the ovary, and this one will stimulate release of FSH from pituitary cells and culture media. Then we do have the third one, what we call as inhibin. It is a protein hormone produced by the granulosa cells of follicle to control the release of FSH and to control the ovulation rate. Okay, we do have, before this, we do have protein hormones. We do have also lipid hormone. Lipid hormone are the one that we call as prostaglandin. Prostaglandin are produced by all of the tissue body. We do have two types, PGE2 and PGF2 alpha. PGE2 will cause the vasodilation of the blood cells that are involved in ovulation, parturition, and sperm transport. PGF2 alpha can cause vasoconstriction and affects the luteal cells of corpus luteum, lyolytic causes of corpus luteum regression. So, how you can see, PGE2 and PGF2 alpha mempunyai function yang kontras between each other. PGE2 cause vasodilation, PGF alpha cause the vasoconstriction. PGE2 are important during ovulation. PGF2 alpha is important during luteal phase of luteolytic of corpus luteum regression. Okay, this is all the chemical class of the hormones. We do have inside the ovary, we do have classes of steroid, what we call as estrogen, protein, what we call as inhibin, steroid, we call as progesterone, as well as protein, what we call as relaxin. They do have all of these principal functions that we have discussed before. For testes, two types of gland, Leydig cells and Sertoli cells. Hormones that are regulated by the Leydig cells are testosterone, is one kind of steroid hormone. And we do have also inhibin, as what we call as the protein hormone. Okay. These are types of gland inside for adrenal cortex. It causes the hormone of cortisol to be released during the parturition by the fetus, as well as we do have the placenta. Placenta can release 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 types of hormone. HCG, ECG, estrogen, relaxin, and placenta lactogen. Placenta lactogen to stimulate mammary growth of milk secretion. Then we do have uterus also can produce prostaglandin. It's chemical classified as lipid. These are mainly for myometrial contraction as well as the ovulation and to transport the sperm. Okay. Inside the gland of anterior pituitary, we do have hormone of FSH, LH, prolactin, growth hormone, as well as adrenal corticotropic. They do have the principal functions that are very well important inside the body. Then hypothalamus gland also cause the releasing of GnRH, dopamine, CRH, growth hormone releasing hormone, as well as the oxytocin. Okay. These are all of those illustrations how the control of endocrine gland function and their interrelationship. GnRH will secrete GnRH secreting neuron. Okay, these are all of those the name in terms of the illustration. Okay, hormone actually is the name neuroendocrine. Also we call as the neurotransmitter because they are releasing factor for all of those hormone. Okay, you see two types of pituitary gland. One is at the anterior part and one at the posterior part. They do have interrelation. After the hypothalamus being activated, they stimulate the production of anterior pituitary to release LH, FSH, and all of those kind of hormone. Okay, for posterior pituitary, they induce only one, what we call as oxytocin. Okay. These are all of the hormonal feedback in male and female. The one that I have said before. Okay, from the hypothalamus. Okay, hypothalamus being activated to induce the generation of gonadotrophin releasing hormone. This gonadotrophin releasing hormone targeting the anterior pituitary. Okay, they will release hormone LH and FSH. FSH in male, okay, in male will stimulate the testes to produce inhibin to give negative feedback. As well as the testis also can stimulate the spermatogenesis. So all of the spermatogonium will be developing into sperms in the seminiferous tubule. For stimulation of LH, they will stimulate the Leydig cells. The Leydig cells will produce testosterone. The testosterone also giving the negative feedback to the hypothalamus so that the GnRH tak perlu dah nak release all of those. Then we do have hormonal feedback in female. Also, from the hypothalamus will produce gonadotrophin releasing hormone that will induce anterior pituitary to release FSH and LH. FSH first will stimulate FSH receptor and stimulate the follicular growth inside the ovary. So the ovary also will release estrogen and progesterone. Okay, estrogen here will cause the follicular growth and also give negative feedback to the hypothalamus to regulate FSH release. For LH, it will directly go to the corpus luteum, initiate formation of corpus luteum after the ovulation. Then the corpus luteum, the one who are releasing progesterone, the progesterone are giving the negative feedback to regulate tonic release of LH to support the corpus luteum until PGF2 alpha causes the regression. Maksudnya dia musnah. Corpus luteum musnah. So tak ada dah progesterone. So hypothalamus pun tak boleh buat for the next stimulation of hormones. Okay, so these are all of the reproductive cycle. You can see we have already discussed during the pregnancy, corpus luteum, rather than having progesterone, also placenta itself releasing HCG, hormone coronary HCG. cholinergic hormone. Okay, lepas ni kita tengok HCG that will stimulate the corpus luteum to further the increment in the progesterone levels, so that the uterine lining will be thickened. Estrogen. Okay, these are the one neuroendocrine pathway for milk letdown. We do have all of those nerve yang kat sini. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.